G'day, you and you. Alright, you two. This is going to be yet another YouTube video about DI boxes and reamp boxes. For this video, I purchased the Radial brand J48 and X-Amp. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about this subject, but I'll try to do a simplified version. So what's a DI box? Records your direct input from your guitar or whatever you're plugging into it, but we're focusing on guitar, of course. And you can split it to two different outputs. So you can plug straight in, and then the output into, it could be like a mixer, and then send it somewhere else, or depending on what your setup is like and what you're intending. For me, the output goes to the audio interface, and then through is the second signal, exactly the same cloned, clean signal, and that goes out to the amp. So you can play away and record a clean signal, and you can also hear it come through the amp at the same time, although I've got a load IR box, so I record tube amps silently, so instead of coming out the speakers, it goes straight into the IR load box and then into my digital audio workstation. I could just mic up the cabinet and do it that way, so I can hear the cabinet in the background and record, you know, from two methods, meaning record the clean signal and the distorted signal from the amp. But the options are, well, not endless, but you have a lot of options with doing shit like that. And as I'm sure everyone knows by now, recording a clean signal of your guitar track along with the distorted amp version, you know, if you're not happy with that tone, you can use that clean signal and then reamp it. And that's what this box is for, of course. You can resend that clean signal into this, and then I can grab any other amp and then you know, feed it through and record that exact same signal through a different amp or a different cabinet. IR. There's been many a time when I've recorded stuff, even stuff I got on YouTube, and I listen back to it a year or two later, I'm like, oh man, that sounds like shit. What was I thinking? I didn't have a clean signal to reamp, so I'm stuck with it unless I redo it. But if you record a clean signal with your tracks at the same time, you can always reamp it later. If you're using all digital amp software and IRs and all that, you don't even need this stuff really. You just plug straight into the audio interface and you use software to record the clean signal and the distorted signal. But I don't like that shit. I like using real tube amps with real pedals into real amps. And I do like IRs though, instead of blasting my neighbours with my cabinets. Plus my miking skills aren't the best. I find that I get way better results using IRs than miking cabinets myself. I can get pretty good, decent results, but not as good as, you know, selected IRs that I've got in my collection anyway. Alright, enough rambling. Alright, let's set this up. So basically, I won't use wireless for something like this. So, back to chords. Guitar. Straight into the DI box in the input. Depending on your setup, you might not, you know, have it the same as what I've got, but I find I have to hit the 15 dB pad. And I also need the ground pushed in as well, because I get a lot of hum and buzz. The rest is just default. So, guitar into the input. Oh, a lot of people get confused between active and passive DI and reamp boxes. I think the rule of thumb is if you're using a guitar with active pickups, choose passive for your, you know, reamp box. Does that apply to DI box as well? Pretty sure it does. And yeah, I use only one guitar I've got is active, all the rest are passive. So I've got an active DI box and an active reamp box. This one's phantom powered, the other one you plug it into the plug. Okay, so input. From there, the output is a XLR, and that goes straight into the interface for this setup. I mean, there's lots of different setups you can do depending on your scenario, but for home recording is what I'm talking about, so this is how I set it up. So the output goes straight into the audio interface. I've got the Scarlett 2i2 and it's in the second input because that's the one with phantom power, which this needs. And the other end is a XLR as well, but you can have an XLR into a jack cable, but depends what cable you got, I suppose. All my cords are on the top of my amp here, so this is the one, the XLR, that plugs into the front of my audio interface. Done. So now that signal will be a clean signal, but we want to split it and go through the amp as well. So you split the signal by plugging another guitar cable into through, and then that can either go straight into your amp. But in my case, I'm going through my pedal board just for a bit of overdrive and noise gate. My plug is here, ready. So this fluoro yellow green cable goes into my pedal board, and then the output goes into the front of my amp. I have got effects in the effects loop already fed through on my amp, but yeah, depends on your setup. So guitar input to the audio interface through the pedal board, and then into your amp. And like I said before, you could, mic up your cabinet, so one signal's gone through the amp and cabinet and the other signal's clean into the interface. But for me, I use the SUR reactive load IR box, so I can record tube amps silently. So my guitar head is plugged into the SUR, which is fucking fantastic, man, because I don't want to piss my neighbours off too much. So I can record any time of the night or day silently with tube amps. How awesome is that? Alright. So it's all plugged in. Yep. Turn her on. Have a sip. Load up your digital audio workstation of choice. Mine is Ardor. I know you've probably never heard of it. So you load up 2 tracks. So one is capture 1, and that's the dirty signal. Amp to SUR to the audio interface. Second one is capture 2, and that will be the clean signal. We need phantom power. Active. So you load up 2 tracks, track 1 and track 2. One will be dirty, one will be clean. Alright. Is it in tune? I forgot how to play. It's on. Kaboom! Nah. What have I done wrong? I've done something wrong. What is it before it blows up? You should never drink and plug in tube amps into things other than cabinets. The word of warning. Oh, that's right. I turned the monitoring off. I'll explain that later. When I set it to software monitoring, then I have control over it. I've just muted one channel, and that's just the clean signal. And just the dirt signal by itself. Alright, so we got control of the clean signal and the distorted tone coming from the amp into the IR load box. You might want to record something now, I don't know. I'll just record a little riff. I've got the clean channel, I'm going to have the clean channel muted so I can't hear that, you know, while I'm playing. But I'll usually put headphones on and do it that way, you know, with a drum beat in the background or whatever, and record. But just for the purpose of this video, it's coming out the studio speakers. That's very sloppy, but you get the idea. So here is the amp signal. And here is the clean signal. Alright, so now you've got the amp signal and the direct input signal. Maybe I'm not happy with that tone and I want to change it. If I didn't have the direct input signal, too bad, mate. You got to record it all over again. But since I've got the clean input signal, I can just send that through the reamp and then through another amp and get the exact same take with a completely different sound. It's a lot more handy if you've got an interface with more than two outputs. But since I've only got two outputs, we got to fiddle about with the cords in the back. Meaning I've got to unplug my studio speakers from the interface. So balanced, make sure it's balanced. Jack cable. We'll put it into the right output on the Scarlett. And the other end is this XLR cable that goes into the input of the reamp box. With this one, I didn't have to push the ground lift button, but I do have to have the level on max, and I didn't have to change anything else. Just plug her in and you're good. So output of Scarlett into the input of the reamp box. Go in, you bastard. What are you, a virgin? There we go. Got to plug it into the mains. There we go. So output of Scarlett on the right hand side to the input. Then output 1 goes into, you know, you might want to go through the pedal board again, which is what I'm going to do. This cable goes into my pedal board. So output, input, out 1 into my pedal board, and obviously the pedal board, that's the only thing, it's plugged into this amp. I'll grab another amp. There we go, into the Dark Terror. So to reiterate, output of Scarlett, input of reamp box, guitar cord goes into my effects pedals, then the output goes into the second amp, Dark Terror. On. Just remembered I've got to plug in this damn thing. Now it's on. Pedal board is on. So now, you know, you might want to arm another track. So it's going to come in through input 1. So make sure it's on input 1. We don't need the other track. We're just getting another dirt signal here. We only want to play the clean signal that goes through the reamp box into the pedal board, amp, sewer, and back into the digital audio workstation. Alright. Anything else I forgot? Oh yeah, that's what I forgot. You have to pan the clean signal into the output that you've got. So what is it? I've got it into output 2, so I've got to pan it right because it's not a stereo reamp box. So you've got to output the full signal, pan it either left or right, depending where you got it plugged into the back. I've got it plugged into the right, output 2. So I'll pan it to the right, and then you've got the full 100% signal going into the reamp and the amp and back into the audio workstation. You've got to turn the monitor up full ball, otherwise you won't get the full signal. Important note, I struggled with this for about an hour after getting this reamp box. I forgot to turn the software monitoring off on my digital audio workstation. So I was getting nothing but loud, deafening screeching. So I'm going to turn that off. Turn off software monitoring. I'll put it back onto hardware monitoring, so that's in control. Otherwise you get ground loops and it just... My tinnitus is as bad as it is, but I made it worse the other day. The track. And I think we're ready to go, if I'm not mistaken. Can't hear anything, of course, because I have no speakers plugged in. Oh, that's hitting the red. We're going to have to redo that. Yeah, look at that. That's way too hot. You idiot, caddy. There we go. Clean sync. Nice. Not overloaded signal. I'll drink to that. I can monitor it with the headphones plugged into this, but I'll hear the clean and the distorted signal at the same time. We're done. Now I'm going to plug the speakers back in and turn this down before I blow my head off. I would purchase an interface with at least 4 outputs, but problem is I use Linux, and the other Scarletts don't have the physical buttons. It's all software, but you've got to go into the specific software, which is not compatible with Linux. And I'm not sure if the third-party app on Linux works very well with those, more advanced Scarlett interfaces. And I haven't found an alternative yet. This was the Marshall. And the orange. Well, there you go, I suppose. Hopefully a simplified, easy to understand video of direct input boxes and reamp boxes, and a simple way to use it for like a home sort of studio recording sort of method. There's more advanced methods you can get into by putting it through a mixer and sending it through other things, but I don't need that. Well, there you go. If you do all your work digitally with digital amp simulators and IRs and digital effects and all that jargon, you don't even really need these, I suppose, but I like to use real amplifiers, and yeah, this helps a lot with, if I'm not happy with the tone, I can always go back and change it. And like I said, so many of my past recordings, I listen to it now like, what was I thinking? Garbage. I'm going to have to re-record all those now. But from now on, direct input signal, I can always fix it later if I wish to. So, really good purchase. Not cheap, but good purchase. Alright. Good off.